Signs of the Southland, Sunday, April 17th, 2021. Mr. Grant, I want to reopen this topic that we were talking about before we started recording about wheat pies. And I want you to explain, just for the record, what a wheat pie is.
Well, I don't really know what's in it, but I do know that it contains citron and ricotta cheese, and it tastes kind of like a Dutch apple pie. I know you'll fight me on this, and I know other people who listen to this might fight me on this, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good, and apparently I'm crazy for thinking that because everyone else who was at this event was like, "This is bad," but I thought it was pretty good.
Okay, number one, you're from the Midwest. You eat some weird stuff. Let's put that out there. Number two, just thinking about this, I've never had this. This is the first time I'm hearing that this is a dish. But after looking it up and hearing about this, the texture of this cannot be any sort of solid, right? Like, there's no way that there is like something tangible to this dish.
I mean,
Like, do you like sludge on crust? Because that's what it is, man.
it kind of was sludge on crust, but I thought it tasted good, and taste is what counts.
I hate Midwesterners so much. You need to learn more about food. Anyway, let's move right along into our club sports updates, of which our Midwesterner has many. Let's start with club golf, who 2 weekends ago, was at Tup Holmes.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this on our last episode. Tup is a weird course. I'm surprised they played championship level golf there. I did not get around to going there for the memes. I apologize, so I was not there in person. That being said, they did get fourth behind UGA, Tennessee, and Auburn in their regional. They were plus 176 on the weekend, and hopefully nobody fell in the snake pit. Tup is kind of a soggy golf course, so hopefully they, got out of the mud there.
And maybe didn't fall off of a cliff.
Dry out on days, but
hopefully they also did not fall off of a cliff. Might be helpful.
Yeah, the cliff there is pretty wild, but that's I guess I was about to say that's neither here nor there, but I guess it's kind of here and there. But
well, it's technically not here, but it is there. If we're going geographically, anyway, this bit has gone on too long. Moving right along, men's soccer played Emory this weekend. No results at press time here. Same deal for women's lax, who is out the Southeastern Women's Lacrosse League Championship. I think that's what the acronym was for.
Yeah. I don't know the results. I looked it up on their USA Lacrosse page, but I'm pretty sure it hasn't been updated in 2 or 3 years based on the name of the president and the dates of the competitions and stuff.
So when I looked up the women's lax stuff, it had not been updated since I started at Tech. So
yeah, pretty much.
Also, not 2 years ago, notable. Moving right along, let's talk about club men's volleyball. They were at NCVF Nationals this week. They finished tied for 21st. You have some thoughts about their online infrastructure, but I want you to walk us through their performance, and then we'll get to the women's side in a bit here.
Yeah. Online infrastructure took me a bit of poking around to actually find the results, but that's probably me being a bit of a noob when it comes to this. But I thought the amount of info they generally had on the site was pretty awesome. And get this, the women's championship is going on right now, and they're playing it in Chase Field. They have a volleyball court set up on the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Wait. Okay. Stadium. I have to look this up. Please talk about the rest of the results while I do look this up, because I am immensely curious.
Look up the acronym Nationals and then just go to that tournament page. But anyways, for the dudes, they tied for 21st in 1AA, I believe was their division. They went 3-0 in their pool play. They beat Nevada in 3 sets, Kentucky in 3, and Rochester in 3. In the Kentucky and Nevada matches, they did drop that first set. So way to bounce back and rally. Like we said, Rochester also went to 3. So a lot of long games. In the next pool, I think it's like a championship pool to figure out who gets into what draw. They went over 2, which is sad. They lost to Kansas and West Virginia in 3 sets before advancing to the consolation draw, in which they went 1-1. They beat Western Michigan in 2 sets. So good, clean win there. They handled business there based on the score in the second set, and then lost to George Washington in 3 sets. They dropped the second and the third. My bad. Scoring convention does kind of flip around based on who won. Yeah, have you pulled that up yet?
This is wild. I have 2 notes. Number one, this is wild. I'm watching them play a volleyball game on a makeshift volleyball court. Well, I guess it's an actual volleyball hardwood on the, what is this? The right field dugout. So the home dugout right in front of there.
Yeah, I think so.
Aren't the Diamondbacks home like soon? Like this week?
Let's look that up. Hold on. Arizona Diamondbacks.
Also, this game is like Wisconsin Eau Claire versus some team in maroon that I can't identify.
It's Wisconsin Eau Claire. Fight me. I'm a Midwesterner. The Diamondbacks they just finished playing the Mets on the road this weekend, and then they're playing the Nationals on the road tomorrow through Wednesday, and then actually another game on Thursday. So they don't come home until Friday, in which case they play the Mets again for the second time in a week, which is dumb. But
wow, these guys really wanted out of that Chase Field lease, huh?
What do you mean by that?
I mean, they're not even. I'm joking about how they're not playing the first 2 weeks of the season at home. Anyway,
no, the Mets season is at home, or the Mets second series is at home next week.
Okay, well, that joke didn't land, so we're going to move on to the second joke that I had prepared, which is championship pool record of 0-2 with losses to Kansas and West Virginia. That sounds like a Texas football season.
Ha ha ha. No,
that was too delayed of a laugh. That was a funny joke, and you know it.
So I was at church for 2 services today because I sing in the choir, and I was all ready to go for all the like pastor corny jokes for the second time around, and I think it was literally only me. So I'm a little bit corny laughed out in terms of my preparedness and tolerance there.
Well, that stinks for you because almost assuredly I have more of these coming later. Let's talk about the women's side of the bracket. They tied for 5th. I assume this is like a 3rd place match or a 5th place match going on the second screen here on the turf at Chase Field. Anyway, they finished 5th. Like I said, they were 3-0 in pool play, just like the men were. Wins versus Cornell, Northern Colorado, and the B team of Texas, which ironic given the joke I just made. And then the championship pool, they went 1-1. They lost to Northern Colorado, which I guess was the same Northern Colorado team. And then they beat Ohio University. And then in the championship draw, which I guess is the playoff round, they lost to James Madison 25-22, 29-27. So some hard fought sets and really close losses here. So give me your thoughts on the women's side of the bracket here.
Yeah, this is where I'm not going to name drop, but I'm well acquainted with the coach of the women's volleyball club team, and actually texted her for some thoughts, and basically it's summed down to they showed up this weekend and it was fun to watch, and I presume that she was also coaching because that's what coaches do, but it seems like they had a nice little weekend for themselves. They are in Division I AAA, which I believe means that they're 2 below the top division. I think that's the one that's currently on the field. Again, don't quote me there. I'm a bit of a noob when it comes to non-hockey and lacrosse and swimming club sports.
I encourage you to learn about promotion and relegation, Jake.
In club volleyball. Yeah, no, but great to see them all show up. Their pool play was very solid. It is tough to take the loss to Northern Colorado in the second time around, but if you'll notice in my notes, I noted that it was the championship draw. This was on purpose because it was in fact the gold bracket. I'm not really sure how they figured that to get Tech in the mix there, but I believe it's kind of like the ACC basketball tournament, how you get like those playing games and buys and stuff. I think they
Sure.
set up a bracket kind of like that where, they went 1-1, so they had to, they didn't get a double bye, but they got a single bye or that kind of
Like
thing.
a
Uh,
regional baseball regional kind of situation.
yeah, playing around the court kind of thing. But yeah, so they tied for fifth. A couple other familiar schools. It is tough to see. James Madison made it all the way to the championship, so could have, what could have been, but no, they didn't.
Extremely Falconsy, I gotta say, because this is a very esoteric joke because for like 6 or 7 years under Mike Smith and Dan Quinn, the Falcons lost to every Super Bowl winner. That's how they got eliminated in the playoffs every single time. It was very frustrating to watch. Anyway, please finish up what you were saying.
No, that's about it. They did a great job, and it's good to see that trickling down because and this is where I get on my high horse just a little bit, but like I was a club sports guy, and I do appreciate very much that people who do club sports or people who do robo jackets or design build or tech esports, whatever that is, not doing it because you're getting a scholarship, but you're doing it because you love the thing that you do and you're good at it and you want to represent tech. So can't really ask for much better than a tie for fifth and a tie for 21st. And we'll talk about another team getting 21st just up next, but it's championship season for these club sports, so it's great to see it pay off for a lot of them. So that's great.
Absolutely. I have one stinger. This is only mildly related as we roll out of this. There is a city in Wisconsin that's named after a sport that we've already discussed or that I've discussed very broadly. How do you pronounce it?
Lacrosse.
Good. Okay. I'm glad we're on the same page. I only mentioned that because that is the team playing the other University of Wisconsin branch in the match that is currently going on at Chase Field. Closing that tab.
Wisconsin's got some wackadoo volleyball talent up there in the upper Midwest. I don't
There's
know
too
how that
much of
happened.
it. There's way too much of it.
Yeah, it's wild, but I'm not complaining.
Closing that tab and moving right along. Let's talk about what you just teased. Men's and women's club tennis finished 21st at their national tournament. You have in our notes, great finish. Please explain why.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about club tennis. I'm still learning how to find all the best results for this too. So don't really know how the season got started, but anytime you finish in the top 25 and can put a good number next to you know next to that finish, that's always solid. Top, like I said, top 25. It seems like basically every club sport at Tech is in the mix for winning something or another every single year, and I don't know, that just makes me proud. So
And I think that kind of comes back to something that we've talked about with regards to swimming and some of the non-rev sports a bunch, that they're all really good athletes. But for the most part, a lot of those guys in the lower quote unquote non-rev sports, so your swimmings, your track and field, et cetera, are coming to Tech for the educational value rather than maybe the athletic pedigree. And you're sort of seeing that trickle down in other ways as well to these club sports, right? In an even more extreme way, where people are here for their degrees, but maybe hey, they played volleyball in high school or they played lacrosse in high school and want to continue that, but don't want either we don't have the program like on the men's volleyball side and the lacrosse side, or they don't want to be a D1 athlete. So it's an opportunity to get a really good education, and hey, you have to sacrifice a bit to do it club style because there's not as much support from the institution, but it's all a worthy cause, and you're still representing the school in some way, shape, or form.
yep, that's absolutely where I wind up there. And I think my personal connection will wrap with two others, but I mean, obviously the swim club is very near and dear to my heart for very similar reasons.
We're getting there.
Also, random question. Got to throw this out there. We talk all the time about the random ways kids wind up at Tech, and I think this is the perfect time to mention that it was actually the club volleyball coach that like 2 toured me around Tech. That's wild connection. I just realized that. So, small world. They're they're the facet leaders and tour guides and rec club peoples of the world is people involved like that. So, good to see them represent.
Absolutely. Let's move right on down the list to our last two items. Men's ultimate frisbee. They finished second in their conference. We are still waiting on their regional results and their pairings and their placements. So I guess we'll update you once we have those. And finally, Jake's home base, the Georgia Tech Club Swim Program, featured at Nationals. They are how many times defending national champs?
Well, they were 3-time defending national champs, but they're not anymore. So
Bum bum bum.
Every good thing comes to an end, it just
All good
conveniently ended
things.
when I left, right?
Great Star Trek episode, by the way.
Star Wars, what? No.
Ooh. Do the coverage. Do the coverage.
Take it back. Yeah, no, since we are still nearby, I was roped into volunteering on Saturday, in which case I went, I'll be the runner, since that means collect all the results and then go run them over to the room and then go back to the hospitality room and eat a snack and then go collect some more results and then run them over to the people who actually do the scoring and then eat another snack. It was a great little vibe. But Sunday afternoon, I did have a head over because we had some family friends in town for the meet. But Tech looked pretty solid. I don't know. There's a couple spelling errors in my tweets because I'm a dummy. But I did do a couple.
Wasn't an English major, huh?
No, I was not. You can clearly I didn't pay enough attention in 2110. But Tech got a couple good finish. There was one event that I wanted to shout out.
You're the one that tweeted all of them, so I hope you can find it.
Oh, yeah, 100 free. There was one kid who finished third among the men, and then we also had a lady finish in the top 8. So great 100 free, and then there was two ladies in the A final of the 100 IM. I think one of the girls has been swimming her like third or fourth final of the night. So that's tough, but really the team that had it the most tough was the Virginia Club Swim Program. They have been they were the last team to win before Tech, so I think they won in 2017, and they missed beating a Michigan State team that was like almost entirely their ex-varsity team that got chopped because of COVID asterisk.
Mel Tucker's contract?
By 5 points. Yeah, so promote Michigan State back to varsity so UVA can avenge that loss. But no, the UVA women are absolutely stacked.
But then where would they get money to pay Mel Tucker, Jake?
They already paid him. Go I don't know. Go ask Kellogg's or any other East Lansing reputable business.
I did forget that Kellogg is from there. Well, 6 still reputable. That's their best finish other than the championships. How were they before 2017? Like, what can we compare this to, sort of in the pre-Jake era?
Well, it's interesting. So 2017 was my freshman year, and Tech actually got 6th that year. The men got either 5th or 6th overall, and the women were a little bit further down the list. So pretty interesting of a parallel there. And they essentially rebuilt and got 6th, and that's fine to see. And that's with a Michigan State essentially varsity team slotting in front of them, UGA putting things together and getting good. Liberty, we don't have
existing
about my personal opinions about that. That they're very good at men's club swimming. I'll leave it there. And then Purdue, perpetual hot tub champions, looked really good. So it's weird because a lot of the names stay the same: Tech, Ohio State, Florida, UVA, but Michigan State, UGA, Purdue, FSU getting in the mix. It's good to see more diversity. It's the same thing we talk about with volleyball or softball or women's basketball. It's the same thing we talk about with men's club lacrosse and men's hockey, right? You want to see different teams getting in on the mix and just generally in the games. So I think we can get to the higher level there, but it's it's fine. They swam solid. And again, like we said, volleyball, 5th, tennis, 21st, volleyball, 21st. The men's lacrosse is shaping up for a top 10 season, could be even better. Like none of these programs are slouches. They're all very, very talented. And I think they deserve way more attention than they get. But that's also a hill I die on, as we know, as the non-rev guy. So
that is true. Just to keep you on track, let's move on to the varsity sports. Let's start on the softball diamond. The Georgia Tech softball program went 4-0 this past week. Last week, while we were off, they had gone 3-1. Just to wrap up last week, they had a 2-1 weekend versus Boston College, which was preceded by a 1-0 win over Troy. I believe that's, I think, what I saw on the sheet. This week they played UAB, whom they beat in extras 5-3, and then they swept NC State at home. Before, I have a bunch of thoughts here, especially as it pertains to postseason positioning. But I want to hear from you, as someone that was there at the ballpark for a couple of the games, what you thought of how they look right now.
Yeah, I was mainly there on Saturday.
Well, they played, 2 games on Saturday? No, they played 1 on Saturday, right?
The doubleheader was Friday, but I missed the offensive showdown or slugfest in game 2. But I really think, obviously the UAB, great to get a win on the road, great to win in extras. They fought to the end, a great win in there. But in terms of NC State, I think this was a series that really kind of not shocked us last year, but we just kind of left that going man, these girls are unlucky and can't keep runs off the board. But this was a complete 180 from that narrative. Georgia Tech was incredibly effective on the mound. Chandler Dennis was one really lucky hit away from a no-hitter, and then 3 wildly improbable events in a row for that same batter from pitching a shutout. So you can't really complain in terms of we've talked about NC State as a team that's really hit Tech well over recent years, and they didn't do anything. I think literally it was a one-hitter Saturday. There was a shutout on Friday, and then a 9-1 run rule. That's about as solid of a sweep as you can get in this conference, especially with how good it's gotten.
Yeah, I just want to pull up the standings for context, if I can find them again. This is the glory of being totally prepared for this part of what I wanted to say. So NC State is 3 slots below Tech right now. At 5-13 in the conference, but they're still 28-18. So on the year, so it's not like they're slouching overall. They might be in a conference, and maybe they had a particularly poor draw in terms of who they got, but they're not a bad team. I think this is one of those series that we pointed out at the end of the year, or at the beginning of the year, as this is where we can say, okay, this team is clicking. They're clicking at the right time. And they're going to be good heading into the latter stages of the year. And considering that there are 2 series left, and only one of them that's an ACC series before the ACC tournament and then the postseason, they're in good shape.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting, especially considering NC State's a top 70 RPI is not a bad place to be, 28-15 overall. This is, maybe it's a team that has been better or could be better, but they're not bad. They handled it really well. One thing I do want to shout out is I know that in my heart, I do know that the Duke and FSU series had some tremendous attendance, but I do want to shout out this weekend, Saturday's 500 felt like more. It was really nice to be in the ballpark. It felt really crowded, people buying concessions, people standing on the hill, and the hill being kind of substantially, crowded. It was pretty solid. Almost 600 on Friday for the late game. It's great to see. Also, since I do have the box scores open, The weather like descriptions, I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast, have had me laughing all year.
We've
Whoever
mentioned
does
it before. We've
okay.
mentioned it before, but I will humor you yet again.
Okay, Friday is weather description. It's a good Friday. Ah,
Boo. You laughed
Saturday,
at that one, but not the Texas football one? Come on. Come
Friday,
on.
Friday, second game, weather, peachy. Saturday, good old muggy Georgia weather. That's so fun. I love that. People are having fun with this team. Like the fans are into it. They're loud. Like it, I don't know. It feels different. It feels good.
Yeah, I will also say, as someone that's watched a bunch of these games on TV, whoever they have doing play-by-play this year, very good at their job. And they're able to gel really well with whoever's been brought in to do color, whether it's Sam Piranuzzi or older alumni. Very well done. I don't know who it is because it's definitely not Wiley. Wiley's out doing other stuff around the Southeast usually, or he's doing baseball in Andy's stead. So, but whoever's doing it, you're doing a good job. And I hope you're also the same person scoring these games for Jake's sake.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, it just feels like, things are clicking and there's a good attitude, and you can't really turn your nose at that. Georgia Tech, as of yesterday, no, the 14th, sorry. So before this weekend's games were played, they are sitting at 26th in the NCAA RPI calculation. I'm not sure what the adjusted RPI numbers look like, but yeah, that's what the 28 and 12. 26th is by far the highest we've seen, at least since we started doing this podcast.
Possibly in a while, honestly, like even further than that. Right now they are 721 win percentage, and I think I looked at the records. That would be the best win percent if the season ended today. That would be the best season by win percentage in about 11, 12 years.
Yeah,
like since the Sharon Perkins golden era, Eileen Morales and Jen Yee era, right there.
Since the last time Eileen Morales was heavily involved with the program.
Yes.
I want to pull something up. Give me verbally stall for a second.
Verbally stall. So I'll go into talking a little bit more about if the season ended today. Right now, if the season ended today, right now, they would be the 7th seed in the ACC tournament. I think we saw a projection from D1 Baseball that had them as a 3 seed in the Tuscaloosa regional a couple weeks ago. I think Arizona was in the mix there as the 2 seed in that regional as well. So that would have been the first round matchup. Tech still has Clemson left on the schedule. They'll play in terms of the ACC schedule. They'll play Troy and Georgia State next week before hitting or before Charlotte comes to town at the weekend. So that's what things look like. We'll keep talking about this, but I want to let you get your word in before I continue.
Yeah, so I've got 2 disparate points, but we'll tie them back in. One on Morales and the state of the program. We talked about, maybe we haven't seen this team this high in X amount of years or since YZ thing. Georgia Tech has hosted a regional in the past. Could very well be the highest since then. I don't know. I can check that later. It's a little bit hard to do that on the fly, but I will say that 31 wins against 12 losses for Georgia Tech, it puts them at a 721 win percentage. But what milestone does this give them in the last 5-year current coaching regime era?
This is the second time they've hit 31. They last hit 31 and 19. You tried to tee me up for that one, huh? I was looking at the media guide yesterday, buddy.
Yeah, and that's with 15 more losses in there against. So they went 31 and 27, and they're at 31 and 12. And that's with 5 rain cancellations of, dare I say, winnable games, and with a decent amount left on the schedule. It would take a horrible calamity for them not to exceed 31 wins. And I need to knock on some wood now. That said, I have discarded the D1 baseball or D1 softball regional like projections for my own, because I do that now. It's built in an Excel file. You're going to hate me.
We're going to teach you how to use Python one of these days, but please, I will humor you.
I like outlining stuff in Excel and then figuring out how to translate that because that's how my brain works. But we can move that discussion
We're gonna
off.
swim across that ocean another day.
If you ever want to live update the weights I've been using here, let me know. But that being said, my Jake Grant's current projection before this week's 4-0 stretch had Tech at 34, the 34th seed in the tournament, behind a number of other stuff. I do weight this differently than other places I've seen, but I like this weighting because it kind of makes sense to me, and you know that's what we're going for. So they can just enjoy all of that. But anyways,
where does that put them in the tournament, Jake?
Oh, sorry. Where does that put them in the tournament? That puts them in the UCLA regional. So that's not ideal, but it does also make them a 3 seed. So basically, my point there is a very roundabout way to say that D1 softball is currently underrating Georgia Tech, just like most of the polls have. And I think that that's a little bit annoying just because they're on the ups, and this is something we've seen in every sport that I think we've talked about, where you get a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt if you have a certain trio of names in your or trio of letters in your conference name, or a certain logo next to your chest. I think Virginia Tech is an amazing team this year, and it took them a very long time to, I think, get their fair shake, at least in the polls too. And
aren't they number one? And haven't they stuck at number one for a while? I was looking at the polls, but I wasn't
number one for like 2 weeks. But I don't think that invalidates my point there. But
anyway, point given. I will say for their RPI metrics, which you can take them or leave them. You specifically can take them or leave them. The fans or the people that listen to this have to listen to them. They are 25th by D1 softball RPI before yesterday's third game of the series. Wanted to make one note. They are 2-8 versus the RPI top 25. So dropping those 3-game series or getting swept by Duke and FSU in those 3-game sets. They went 1-2 versus Notre Dame. And then obviously they beat Athens in Athens. So that explains the 2-8. To tie this all back,
they'll get 3 more cracks at Clemson in 2 weeks, though.
That's where I was headed. Clemson is 21st right now. And like we were saying, that is the last ACC schedule that Tech, or last ACC opponent that Tech has on the schedule. So here's the picture. Let's draw it out here for what the teams that are hovering around that 7th seed in the ACC tournament. So Tech obviously is already at 7. Notre Dame is the 4 right now. Notre Dame holds a head-to-head tiebreaker over Tech because of the series win. Clemson, Tech will play Clemson in 2 weekends. Clemson has FSU and Tech left to play. They will go to FSU. FSU is, I think, 2nd or 3rd right now. Louisville is right above Tech at 6th. Tech holds the head-to-head tiebreaker there. Louisville has VT at VT left to play, which, sorry, buddy, that one's going to suck for you. Then they have they'll play UVA, who we'll talk about in a bit, and then they will go to Notre Dame to end the year. UVA is at 8. If I remember correctly, Tech also holds the head-to-head tiebreaker there. I think they played very early in the season. I can't remember. But I assume there's some sort of tiebreaker advantage there. UVA has Pitt and then the aforementioned Louisville Cardinals left.
Tech actually hasn't squared up against UVA this year, and that's something that I noted.
Anyway, my preparation was wrong.
It doesn't annoy me anymore because that probably would mean that we'd have to play VT as well. Also, well, I just noticed that very clever midweek at UIC before Louisville goes to Notre Dame. I like that.
You got to give them hope before they get their dreams crushed. It happens every time.
Shush, Notre Dame. We don't talk about them yet. Yeah, no, UIC, very interesting place. I have swum there probably more meets than anywhere else in my youth.
Wait, is that at UIC?
Yeah, it's on Roosevelt Road in Chicago. Yeah.
Okay, I have some question. I have some other unrelated questions about that. We'll talk about them later, but please finish your point.
Oh, I was just saying, I love creative scheduling like that. Like you saw Tech swimming a couple of years ago did a double that was Notre Dame Northwestern. We saw the Duke UNC swimming
The
double.
Miami Northwestern bit for swim.
Yeah, Georgia Tech playing a road midweek in the North. What? That's coming this year. Sorry for baseball, but should clarify. I don't know. It's just interesting and different, and I like interesting and different.
Fair enough. So just to round out sort of that postseason picture, it looks to me like Tech is the only team in the conference that doesn't have two ACC series left, at least two ACC series left.
Yeah.
So I think Louisville is going one weekend longer than Tech is. Clemson and UVA are going to end at the same time as Tech, basically. I didn't check the rest of Notre Dame's schedule. Basically, if you beat Clemson, if you win that series, you are probably into the 5 seed, depending on what Notre Dame does. If you can slip past Notre Dame somehow via that Clemson series and via Notre Dame's remaining schedule, that would be a double bye, right? I don't remember the bracket.
I think it's 7-10, and then a normal quarterfinals from there. So
unfortunate.
I think it's more of like a double play, and I guess it counts as a single bye, but whatever. It's semantical point. I do have a little game for you. It's very simple and very straightforward. It's called Guess What Clemson's RPI is right now.
They're 11th in D1 softball. So they have to be like around there in NCAA.
They're 10th, even better. And we get to play them on the road, and they're sold out for every game of this year stadium.
So I will say, though, that they do not. I think you mentioned this. They don't. Well, you partially mentioned this, but they don't look as impressive as years past. I mean, they're 33-11. So, like,
they've only existed one other year.
True, but they were electric the last 2 years. You have to give me that.
That is fair. I will give you that.
They are 11. They are 11-7 in conference. They have FSU. They'll play FSU this weekend. So pencil that in how you want. But I think we kind of know how that one's going to work out. And then they'll go to Tech. So Tech and Clemson will be on even terms heading into that series, effectively.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting to see what happens there, simply because, and I don't know how much we've talked about that Notre Dame bit, because I think you wanted to get a line in there. But Clemson and Notre Dame played like this weekend. Notre Dame Clemson won 3-2, then lost 0-4, and then won 2-1, which means Notre Dame was able to keep their bats quiet, and they were able to keep Notre Dame's bats quiet. And if they can keep Notre Dame's bats quiet, I think that is a little bit scary for us, because Notre Dame lit us up.
Yeah. It'll be, I mean, like it has every other time that we talk about this team and the other stickball team, which we'll get to in a minute, it comes down to pitching. And so if Dennis and Nelliman can have a good weekend, I mean, you just got to be better than the franchise. That's it. You just got to be better than the franchise.
Yeah, fourth-year sophomore Valerie Cagle, or whatever that ridiculous stat is.
They built an entire team around her. Anyway, to round out the ACC discussion, I want to make this note as I'm looking at the conference as a whole. There are only 2 teams under 500 right now for the season. And Boston College, which is the first one of them, is only 1 game under 500. Pitt is 7, but it's a very strong group, more or less top to bottom. It's pretty impressive how far this conference has come since it was just dominated by FSU and Tech for a period of like 5 or 6 years.
There was only like 6 teams in the conference until 2014. Like it was not very large. But I think complementing the record talk is, flavoring it with some adjusted RPI. Syracuse is the bottom of the conference with 110. They've faded. But Boston College, Pittsburgh, NC State and Virginia a little bit have kind of sifted down a little bit. They're in the 65 to 75 range. You got North Carolina at 55, solid. And then everyone else, the other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams, more than half the conference is in the top 40, with Louisville being at 40, Tech being at 26, just knocking on the door of the top 25 in RPI. But then you've got Notre Dame at 21, and then four teams in the top 10. That has got to be the best we've seen for the ACC ever, right?
Probably. I mean, I think that the history there outstrips my softball knowledge.
Oh, for sure, me too. But I've got a question for you. If there's four ACC teams in the top 10, how many SEC teams are in the top 10?
Like three?
Nope, wrong.
Just the one? Oh, two. Okay. Well, it was in the middle.
Bama in Florida. Bama in Florida. The ACC, I think, is not top to bottom the strongest, but its elite teams could beat anyone this year. I think that's
interesting. That is something to keep in the back pocket as we move towards ACC tournament and then NCAA tournament this season in the next few weeks. Just to recap the schedule and head out of here. We'll head out of this segment. Troy will come to Tech on Tuesday. Wednesday will be Tech traveling to Georgia State in Panthersville. And then at the weekend, Tech will play 3 games versus Charlotte, 2 of those on a doubleheader on Friday. And then the series finale on Saturday. Let's move right along to the other stickball diamond. The baseball team was in UNC this weekend, but before we get there, let's talk about the results from last week. They beat USC Upstate in just a barn burner, if I remember correctly, and then they went 2-1 versus FSU. At the midweek, they took a loss to Georgia State, which that's not great. And also the mayor threw out the first pitch, and all of that was at home, and not what you want. And then they went to UNC, and boy, that was a home run derby of a weekend, huh?
Wait. The mayor threw out the first pitch?
Yep.
Okay. I kind of dig it. We're playing state. It makes sense. He went to Tech. I'm
then
there.
They lost.
Shush. You know, we just need Emory's baseball team in the stands, like yay, we're here too, you know. But no, it was kind of ugly on Tuesday, and I will say I watched more of that game than probably any of the weekend games. So hooray for me. But you know, we can say our pitching is question mark, giving up 30 runs, but a series win's a series win, and FSU and UNC are both quality teams. So not really going to complain, but I definitely have concerns, and I think that is a fair place to be. And you can either validate me or you can tell me why I'm wrong, and I'm interested to hear where you choose to go with that.
So let me actually get to the point. They went 2-1 versus UNC. I don't think I actually said that before. They won this series despite giving up 30 runs in 3 games. Each game was a home run derby. There was exactly like 0 quality pitching performances in this series from both teams, and I think we kind of expected that from UNC coming in. Right. I think one of the things that we pointed out when we were doing our preview is that UNC's Achilles heel was its pitching staff. And if they did not put it together, it was going to be sort of a scuffly year for them. And to make that point even clearer, UNC and Tech basically have the same record. They have a losing record in the conference. Which, I mean, Tech is 9 games over 500, UNC's 8 games over 500, but at the same time, it's not where UNC has been in the past, right? UNC has been at the top of the Coastal. They've been at the top of the conference and in the national poll contention previously. They're just not having the same type of year this year. But I agree with you in that there are concerns. It's great to have a battery, like basically an artillery battery that can fire at any given moment and keep you in games. But at the same time, you don't want to have to keep trotting the cannon out there and keep making it fire in order to stay in games. Right. So it's a catch-22 basically.
Yeah. And I think that's a really dangerous place to be living. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's
I
the exact same place that they've been in ever since we started not just covering this team, but watching it. Right? Like,
Yeah, it's weird that that's not the same amount of time, but it is the same amount of time, or it's not the same amount of time. Like it's been a truth across multiple pitching coaches now, and I'm not really sure. We basically built the best facility money can buy, and it doesn't seem like anything changed from one to the other. I better knock on some wood. It is great to still be recruiting at a really high level and bringing kids in, but I don't know. It just seems like a theme, and I don't really know how to break themes.
I
That's not
mean,
that's not what the big bucks to do.
one of the things that we talk about on the football end is that it's winning in college football. It comes down to player acquisition and then player development, right? You have to be good. You have to be good at both of those, but you can be really good and you can sort of get around being really good at one and really bad at the other, right? Like we know teams that are half teams in that way. So it to me, we're really good at the talent acquisition bit, and that's why you're able to see this team put together, scoreboard destruction on average. But at the same time, they're allowing that scoreboard destruction despite having good talent acquisition on the pitching front as well. So my question becomes, well, once they get on campus, what are we doing? Like, is it a selection issue? Is it a strategy or tactical issue? Is it they're not trained to pick the right pitches situation? They're not using some metrics to pick matchups properly or attack hitters a specific way. Like, where's the disconnect is what I want to understand. And I don't know if we've gotten a ton of insight onto where that is in the last couple of years.
I think one of our biggest problems as a podcast is like there's no way that we're ever going to find out that answer short of like some crazy extenuating circumstance, right? So as much as we
look, if I bug the lab, don't come, like we'll know.
Yeah, that's fair. If
I'm not going to do that. Don't hold that against me. This is a disclaimer.
Yeah. Only legal,
only legal information finding. But I think your point makes sense. We're never going to know what the situation is. We're just going to know what the results are.
Yep. And again, like, I mean, the loss to Georgia State isn't great, but we do kind of keep getting unlucky with, Mercer, Southern, Kennesaw, and State just having these incredible starting pitchers out, and there's just not enough. Like, they're throwing great games, and there's just running out of time at the end. With able to rally, tack a couple runs on Kennesaw State being the best example of this. Like, other than those midweek question marks, like, what did we say at the beginning of the year? Winning a series against Florida State, a good team, a really good team, is not a bad thing. Winning a series against UNC, not a bad thing. Like, they're other than the Wake annihilation Saturday, which I think left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, and the fact that it seems like they could do that again, like if we run into them again. But other than that, like, they've relatively taken care of business. It just seems that when they haven't, it's been almost spectacular in a way.
Like they leak a little oil and then the whole thing explodes, kind of deal.
Yeah,
they leak a little oil. They spark up a little too much, and then the whole thing catches on fire.
Yeah. Well, a fire that has them top 25-ish RPI. There are worse fires to be in, I suppose.
Or I guess. I don't know. Speaking of Mercer and speaking of those in-state midweek games, they have another one coming up versus Mercer. That will be the home leg of that series on Tuesday. And then at the weekend, they'll face Duke, who is currently last in the Coastal at 6-12. in the conference and 16-20 on the year. Not the same, same quality of Duke team that we've seen in years past, but if I remember correctly, they just took a series off of Notre Dame. So not really a lot of easy outs week over week, even if Duke is last place in the Coastal.
Yeah. It's kind of Miami's division to lose at this point.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's a number of weekends left, so it's a little bit too early to say anything too substantial about that. But they're at 14-4. Virginia Tech's in second at 9-7. Virginia at third at 10-8. Tech at an even 500. Yeah, we need to help ourselves out a little bit here in the coming weeks. We've got, like we said, we've got Duke, Miami, and Pitt for sure, and Clemson, I think, left. So there's enough games to make up the ground. It just requires, Tech getting on their horses and riding. So
yeah, and looking at the conference as a whole for the first or second time now that I have these open, this seems like one of those years that the conference eats itself alive. I think we saw it last year too, where a bunch of these teams' records, Miami's 14-4, but no one else has broken the 10 conference win threshold. Right. But you look at their overall records and a bunch of them are over 20 wins and over 500. So this conference is just eating itself alive in league play. And I'm interested to see how that is either rewarded or penalized in the postseason seedings, because as we saw last year, that got really, really penalized. And a lot of those like Notre Dame and Virginia, and what have you, those seedings. So,
yeah, and that wasn't really helped either by the whole, we're going to name the possible hosts well in advance. And it's like Pitt and Notre Dame. And it's like Tech hadn't hit their stride yet. Virginia hadn't hit their stride yet. Duke came out of nowhere to win the conference.
I don't think Pitt made the tournament, but barely.
I don't think they did.
Yeah. Oh, no. I remember Pitt beat Tech and then immediately, 2 weeks later, fell off, if I remember correctly.
I don't think they made the tournament is the point. In terms of RPI in baseball, Tech is sitting at 12th, Wake Forest at 10th, Virginia at 14th. So we're right in the neighborhood with those teams. You got Miami at 5, Notre Dame at 3, and everyone is in the, Duke is at 126 and Boston College is at 83, but everyone else is up there. And just to circle back on your eating alive point, we're talking about Notre Dame, a team being in the top 3 of RPI and is at 8-7 in conference and is in 5th in the Atlantic. They're 21-8 overall, but
Tech baseball's strength of schedule is second in the nation just because of how tough the conference is.
Well, the conference is tough, and the state of Georgia as a whole is having a really great year between Southern State, Mercer, Kennesaw, those people over there, and us. It's not a bad time to be in the state of Georgia in terms of baseball talent. I am curious to see how the ACC stacks against the SEC. Yeah, they've got 3 in the top 10. You got Vandy. Wow, they already updated the Vandy logo on the NCAA website. That seems quick for the NCAA.
Well, that's a legal thing, I assume.
Vandy at 16, Auburn at 23, Arkansas all the way down to 30, LSU at 32, Missouri at 36.
Similar profiles, it seems.
Mississippi State at 78. Yeah, the floor is higher, kind of like softball. The floor, Mississippi State, South Carolina, or if you're talking softball, South Carolina again. Oops. That floor is a lot higher than the bottom of the ACC. But I think that the top teams in our conference can play with just about anyone, and I think that's a theme that we've really circled back on. Clemson again, 4-10 in conference. Another team just getting eaten alive. Louisville leading the Atlantic at 9-6, a 600 win percentage. Anyone can beat anyone on any given day.
Yeah, again, all of these teams, a bunch of these teams are over 20 wins on the year. A bunch of them have plus 600 or 600 plus win percentages on the year, and a bunch of them are under 500 in conference. It's ridiculous.
The only team that I go a little bit yikes looking at it is Boston College, to be quite honest. But even then, they're cold and in the north and they have 3 conference wins. Like, poor guys. Yeah.
Womp womp. I think we've talked about baseball quite a bit and all the stickball sports quite a bit. So let's move on to a different sort of stickball sport. Georgia Tech golf. They are 11th in the nation. The last time I checked, they were at the Calusa Cup the last time we spoke. Do you want to tell me how they did at the Calusa Cup, Mr. Grant?
It's been that long. Oh, we recorded it during the Calusa Cup.
Yep.
That makes sense. Okay, so wrapping up the Calusa Cup, I guess summary is it was really freaking good.
Very.
They did really well. They did fantastic. We talk a lot about Tech winning invites, which we are blessed that they do a lot, because there's a lot of teams that compete in individual golf or various golf invitationals. And not only did they do that, but Bartley Forrester also won the dang thing overall. So really, really, really solid weekend. And to make it even better, Tech, who's number 11 at the time, beat not only, top 16 and 17 Florida and Wake Forest, but Oklahoma, they beat Oklahoma by what? 25 strokes. Tech was 8 under. Next closest team was Florida at even. Then Wake Forest +4, Oklahoma +17. They beat number 23 Purdue and 22 Clemson as well on the weekend.
That is a supernova weekend for Tech golf.
And number 8 Georgia. And what did we say at the beginning of the year is this team, when they lock it in and play well, they're as good as any of the teams in the country.
And they played, and this was amazing competition.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're never on TV, and there's no literal home golf course. And a lot of their stuff is, got to fly to Maui if you want to go watch them play. So it's tough to connect to that. I think for a lot of average folks, especially if you're not super into golf, but like, man, they're the real deal. They can beat literally anyone.
Yeah, and they'll get a chance to do that again at the ACC tournament coming up this weekend, or this coming weekend, next weekend, whatever. Dates are hard. And they've already played at that golf course before this year.
Yep. Didn't they win that one too?
Sharktooth? I think so.
Yeah, they won the Watersound Invite at Shark's Tooth, first place -15.
Yep. So they can go back to their dominance of the ACC very easily here.
Take care of business. This is Tech's most, dare I say, successful program in any sport. And certainly the most successful one to never have won a national anything. I would say that may be a little bit bold, but they've got 17, I think, ACC titles, and this would make them, I believe, unwedge the tie between them and Wake Forest at 17, and would give them an 18th if they were to win this coming weekend. It would be Tech's first ACC tournament / championship so far on the year, ? You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't think of another one that we might have won.
They didn't win one in the fall.
No, they didn't win one in the winter either. So I think
this would be the first one of the year.
But you don't want to put the cart before the horse. They gotta play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday before anything's ironed out. But they look primed to go in the postseason, and this is a really great team, really solid team. They're playing great golf, and I don't know. Again, I think they really get done. Not really a disservice because there's not really a ton you can do about it. You can't build a golf course in Midtown, but it's just,
well, you can. You just have to knock down a bunch of stuff.
Well, and even as somebody who I guess covers them, until I started playing golf, I didn't really get the game. Oh, they're minus, but that stuff's hard. I didn't appreciate understanding that because you can't watch it, you can't go watch them. And it's not the same individual style that you see on the PGA. It's really college golf's kind of unique in the same way that college tennis is, I think, a lot different than its professional counterpart. But that could be that actually wouldn't be a bad podcast episode. But anyways, file that one away for later.
Bookmark made. Let's move over to the track. Track was at the Auburn War Eagle Invitational in all caps, as you wrote it before. They posted 9 top 3 finishes on Saturday. So let's go through a couple of these. 2 first place finishes in the men's and women's 1500 meters and the 100 hurdles. The women's 100 hurdles. So that's Mary Catherine Knott in the women's 1500, Charlie Smith in the men's 1500, and Taylor Grimes in the 100 meter hurdles. On the women's side, Shanti Papacosta was second place in the women's high jump, and Carla Duplessis anyway, finished third just behind her. A couple more third place finishes to round out the weekend. Olivia Moore in the women's pole vault, John Watkins in the men's triple jump, Anna Witherspoon in the women's 100 hurdles, but just in the attached athletes, I think. And then Sheila Harris in the women's 100 meters. So really, really competitive, really, really high quality weekend on the track at Auburn for Tech.
Yeah, definitely agree. It's definitely good to see them, getting in the mix with top 3 and top 10 finishes. I know they were also making notes of their top 10 finishes in terms of the Twitter coverage, which is, the more the merrier. I think it's also notable that, someone like Mary Catherine Knott or Shanti Papacosta or Carla Duplessis, Olivia Moore gets mentioned a lot on this podcast. And again, I think this is a team that suffers from a similar issue as golf does, except they actually do get home invites. So maybe that's more of a shame on, us for not catching their other one that's been at home so far. But, there's just not as much exposure. But I think it's great that, we're seeing different names and different people getting in the mix. And, obviously you go to Auburn, you're on the road and going up against some Power 5 teams. That's about all you can ask for. It's Tech has long built its track program on a lot of individual stars, and I think it's easy for us as people who don't have the most exposure to it to say, oh yeah, Olivia Moore did again, really good job. But seeing Sheila Harris, John Watkins, Charlie Smith in the mix for the 1500 meters or 100 meter hurdles or whatever items those may be, it's good to see just more getting out there, because I think that's a sign of the depth. And again, another left turn we could take is talking about depth versus star talent in swimming and track, but it's about as good as a weekend as I think we've seen from them so far this year, at least in terms of a number shiny finished medal type weekend, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think your point about the depth is super important, right? We talked about that in reference to the swim team too, right? We talked about how that men's swim team has built up a lot of that depth that has enabled them to have better finishes in recent years at the NCAA tournament. And this tracks the same way, right? We're talking about, even though these aren't like gold medal finishes, but they're still, but you have a bunch of these top 10s, you have a bunch of these podiums and people who are capable of putting those together at a pretty competitive invitational. Let's keep that momentum going. Let's see how that works out as we move towards the NCAA championships later on this year.
Yep, I agree. I think that's a fair way to put it.
All right. The next meet for track is at the GT Invitational. They'll host that next week. I think Penn relays are immediately after that, the following weekend after that. And I think ACCs are after that. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have the calendar in front of me.
Would it be fair to call Penn relays like the most famous collegiate meet in the world?
Meet, yes. Event, not necessarily.
I just think it's cool that they go because, they hosted in Franklin Field, and that's a pretty historic stadium. And I don't know, a little bit of a left turn. I just wanted to gut check you on that.
I will say I'm not a track expert, so probably not the appropriate audience for that question, though.
Fair enough.
I'm more of an Oregon. It would be real nice if I remember what Oregon's track and field stadium was called, but I'm an Oregon truther, actually.
Oh, I see the name in my mind. Oh my goodness. Oh, Steve.
I want to say it's Hawkins Field or Knight Field, but I know it's not either of those.
Oregon track. I'm looking it up. That's going to kill me. Oregon track and field. Hayward Field.
Yeah, I'm a Hayward Field truther, actually.
Yeah, the crazy thing that they built there. I forgot how bananas looking that
Oh, they
stadium.
tore the entire thing down. They tore the whole structure and rebuilt it from scratch.
Well, it's giant now. It's an affront to to the heavens, you know.
Logical spending of money.
Oh, also the thing I was thinking of is the other meet being the Prefontaine Classic. But anyways, sorry. Left turn.
All right, let's take a right turn after your left turn to get back on course. Let's talk about women's tennis. They are ranked 34th in the nation, I believe, still. They may have gone a little bit higher since last time I checked this, but they have had a bit of a rough stretch. If I remember correctly, they lost versus Duke. They lost versus UNC last week while we were out. They did beat VT this week. They swept them, but they lost 5-2 today on senior day versus Virginia. How are we dissecting those four results?
Yeah, I honestly feel bad. I wasn't at any of them. Well, I mean, the away ones I don't feel bad about. I'm not flying to Raleigh for tennis. No offense.
Get to
But
the point.
they've been solid, right? Duke and UNC, we don't have their rankings on there, but those are both really good teams. And then
I think UNC is
number
the
eight,
one right now.
yeah, they've been in that mix all year. But and then number 8 UVA, like you can't like it. It's one thing to be like, oh yes, they went 1-3, but like they went 1-3. They absolutely demolished VT, and then took about as much care of business as you can against 3 top 10 teams. Like that's the problem with playing in the ACC. Like usually we are maybe a little bit higher up than this in terms of ACC pecking order, but like when you're playing three top 10 teams in 2 weeks, that's about as tough as of a slate as any team is going to see. So you know
Yeah.
you want to go 2-2 there, but I think asking for anything more than 2-2 would have been trying to put one over the moon.
Yeah. I think this, just to talk about their standing, sort of the big picture here while I pull this up. So they are they are 13-9 on the year. They 13-9 on the year, 8-5 in conference. So they will be the 6th seed in next week's ACC tournament that's being hosted in Rome, Georgia. They will face the winner of Boston College and Louisville, and then the winner of that pairing will face the 3 seed Miami. If you're wondering how close they were to the 4, they've actually fallen. Wait, did I miscount this? No. If you're wondering how close they were to the 4, so that double bye, UVA and Miami were both 10-3, and also NC State was 10-3 heading into the weekend. While Tech was 8-5, all conference records there. So hard to play for seeding when the other 5 teams ahead of you are so good. But 6 is fine. They'll most likely advance out of that first round and then play Miami, and we'll see what they got.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's fair.
Okay, let's switch over to the men's side. Last I checked, they were 51st in the nation. They also have had a very rough stretch to end the year, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean it's been tough. They've lost a lot of heartbreakers, and I was actually at yesterday's contest. It was, they started this. They lost the doubles. That was before I got there. I was like considering going to softball, so I was like, I'll go to softball, and then I was like, oh, that doesn't start till 3. I'll go to tennis. And they came out in singles, winning 5 of 6 first sets, and just really couldn't get momentum on their side. And I don't know. It's easy to like write this off as like, oh, things are compounding, like, oh, they're just snake bitten, blah, 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 whatever. They've been in a lot of these matches, and it's probably tough for a talented team as this to see, 51 as their current ranking, and, knowing the realities of 32 auto bids, know that means they're probably Just going to be hoping for doubles and singles individual draw entries, which they will absolutely get because they're pretty good at those. But yeah, I don't know. It's just it's tough, and that's tennis is a cruel sport, and honestly, a lot of sports are cruel. I don't know. They were looking good. Like that's the tough part too. Is Marcus McDaniel came right back and put a point on the board for the FSU contest, and they couldn't really do much there. But I mean, Keshav Chopra was playing great. I was sitting right at his court. Andres Martin was playing great too. It's just tough, right? And that's like we said, or like I said, tennis is kind of a cruel sport. So
Just to sort of talk about the results, it's an exceedingly rough skid. They have lost their last six to end the year, the last six matches. So that's 5-2 or 2-5 to Duke, 0-7 to NC State, 1-4 to North Carolina State, 1-6 to Wake Forest, 3-4, a rough one versus Miami earlier this week, and then 1-4 to Florida State to end the year. So a lot of bad luck, a lot of just unfortunate balls not bouncing your way. But we'll see. They are, if I have the standings pulled up, they are 3-9. They ended 3-9 in conference. They are 8-13 overall, if I'm reading this correctly.
well, I mean, they have to go on a run to get in the mix. Like you got to win the tournament or something like that, and that's a tall order. So,
Yeah. So just to talk about the tournament, that the men's ACC tennis tournament is also in Rome. Tech will be the 10th seed versus number 7 Miami. When I last checked, the winner will play the 2 seed Wake Forest.
when in Rome, sorry.
How do you laugh at this but not the Texas football one? Come on. The Texas football joke was good.
You keep telling yourself that, bud.
Anyway.
It's fine. I'm giving you a hard time.
Unbelievable. All right. That's the men's tennis situation. Any thoughts on their draw? Any thoughts on the women's draw too, while we sort of suss out the end of the season for both of those squads?
What was I going to say? I think Tech is, for the men, definitely is interesting. They have the opportunity to get a win against Miami. I think that's very fair. At least Wake Forest is going to be tough though for the men. So that's a bit tough, but that's why you play the matches, right? You got to actually get the points. So we'll see how that shakes out. And then for the women, I think they stand a shot at beating Miami in the second round. Should they beat BC versus Louisville? At least a shot of it. I think they've also kind of gotten unlucky too, and just playing some close matches and whatnot. So nothing too crazy there, but yeah, it'll be an interesting weekend. I think the women are definitely too far out to get any sort of hosting type situation, but I think they're more playing for a favorable 2 seed, if anything, if that makes sense.
Just to recap the last time that Miami and Tech played, that was Miami's opening on the women's side. That was Miami's opening ACC series, and Tech lost 3-4. Mm-hmm. So close shave. I think 1 or 2 points, 1 or 2 games go a different way, and you have a different result. So we'll see how they do in Rome. We'll see how the men's tennis squad does in Rome. That is it for our shot sheet. That is it for us today. Anything else we want to mention before we head out of here?
I got nothing. I think in general, it's turning that time. We kind of get a lull after NCAAs. There's like a week or two where things get quiet. But between NBA playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, we got college baseball and softball knocking on the door with regionals, MLB starting to get into swing. It's busy, and it's also 40 minutes into Sunday night baseball, I think. So I should let us adjourn to watch Los Bravos, but that's another thing.
Yeah, Braves are having an interesting year so far, aren't they?
I think we as Atlanta-based sports folks will have a very interesting next couple of weeks. And I think, knocking on wood for the third time this episode, it could mean seeing some postseason action for not one, but for two tech teams. So that's good to see. Just got to keep taking care of business.
Absolutely. Plug our stuff and let's get out of here.
Yeah, from the rumbleseat@gmail.com if you would like to send us your suggestions, your thoughts, ideas for future episodes. If you're interested in us talking about, what was it, why college tennis and golf are different than pro tennis and golf, I like that. I think we'll do that over the summer, if I remember. Let's see. Yeah, from the rumbleseat.com for your long form stuff. Add us on Twitter. Let us know your feedback. We want to hear from you, and we want to talk about things you're interested in hearing, liking, listening, subscribing, retweeting. All that stuff is great for engagement and helps us get this where it needs to go. If you have anything for us directly, feel free to reach out. I am at Jake Grant at Jake Grant 98 on Twitter, and he is handle redacted on Twitter as well, but feel free to reach out. And be well this week. There'll be plenty of action to go around. So keep your eye on the site.